Hello, hello, everybody. Surprise. Hola. You get me today. I'm so excited to be able to connect with you guys here in this space. Apologies for the delay. We're navigating a whole bunch of stuff. Tara and Gabriel are continuing on their journey home. And so I'm going to step in and take over in this space, and you guys get to kind of see my beautiful face and hear my voice a little bit more. I know you've been taking in Tara and Gabriel for the last over a week. And it's been such a big, beautiful conversation. And I was just popping off. We have our beautiful divine manifestation experience over in school. And so I was just wrapping up a Q&A, which turned into like a really beautiful impromptu talk and live that I'm going to upload into the portal for you guys to take a listen into. And so I'm going to kind of continue off of the vibe in the conversation. I want to welcome those of you that have been taking part this week. If you're watching the recording and you're not familiar with my face, I am Alexandra. So I am a clarity coach here in the space. I am also head of client success and expansion in the Academy of Light. I have been supporting Tara and Gabriel here in their business the last almost 6 years, which has been such a big, beautiful experience. I've known them for probably the last 15 plus years. And I have a background in a whole host of different spaces and places. I have a degree in communications, which served me really well. I have been a media manager in advertising and marketing for several years. And I've been doing this inner work, I'd say, for the last 2 decades. I was a yoga practitioner and meditation coach for several years. And so I really learned to find my voice and to lead. And since then, I've done a whole host of additional programs and certifications, many through Tara and Gabriel and some through other mentors to really help build up and allow me to show up in this space and be able to support you guys here. So I'm so grateful to be able to connect. And I'm going to just give me 1 second here, guys, because I want to make sure I have Facebook open. We're dividing and conquering today. And so if anyone's over on Facebook, I'm going to try and open it up. So I've got both windows, but if I don't catch you, I know I went ahead and posted the Zoom link in there for you guys. It's a little more challenging to be live and post the links. So I'm going to do my best. But again, this recording is going to end up getting uploaded into the replay link, and you guys will have access to it there. And I feel like all y'all at this point have all the links. So I'm not so I know I went ahead and that. Okay. So I'm going to dive in and get started. If anything comes up for you guys also while you're here live in the Zoom room, feel free to pop it in the chat. This is not necessarily like a formal Q&A style, but I do want to open up this space because we've had so much content. We've had an abundance of information, right? Over the last week that I don't feel like I want to bring forward necessarily any new information. There's definitely some pieces I want to highlight for you guys. There's some pieces I want to bring forward in terms of the conversations we've been having and things that we've been hearing to help support you guys through maybe some of those areas of resistance that are showing up. But feel free, if something drops in or you've got a question, or maybe we want to like live workshop some of those resistant, friction pieces that you guys might be feeling, again, or pieces and parts that have shown up. If I'm speaking into something and it's landing and you'd like a bit of support, pop it in the chat or like wave your hand, unmute, and pop on, because we're kind of going to go with the flow here. But I am going to honor time. I want to keep this to the hour and save some space at the end just to connect a little bit more. Healing code. So let me say hi to everyone. Now that I got the housekeeping out of the way. Hey, Caitlin. I just got a chance to talk to Caitlin. Hello again. Jess, so nice to see you. Zoe, Becky, Courtney, Healing Light Codes. I think that's Gina. And iPhone. I don't know who iPhone is. I know it's been Mariah before, so maybe that is you. But thank you guys so much for showing up. And for the consistency of you guys, I just want to acknowledge that also. We notice, oh, hey, Mariah, I was right. We notice, right, when you guys are showing up, we can see who tunes into the replays as well. So I just want to really acknowledge and appreciate y'all for kind of showing up this week. Okay. I'm going to dive into a couple different pieces and we're going to flow with this. So a conversation I was just having over in the divine manifestation space, but very much connected to the conversation we're having now, is, are you guys manifesting your greatness? And that can feel like a big question, but it's a really important question. And Tara brought forward a really powerful in her plug-in and power up this morning. She's talking about the magnetic mind, and I'm going to bring that forward because that is where we want to focus today. But part of this whole conversation is going back to the question of, are you witnessing, acknowledging, celebrating your ability, your greatness, your capacity on a daily basis? In like the most minutia of moments to like the most grandiose expressions of it. And I think sometimes what it is we're waiting for those really big moments that we bypass those little tiny magical miracles that are happening. And this is part of the pathway to your purpose. Manifesting your greatness is hand in hand with you lining up and being able to receive the breadcrumbs. Notice those rocks that you're able to step over and on towards your purpose. And we need these reminders sometimes. Reminders to like celebrate each and every moment. Amplify your greatness. I used like the really simplistic example, but I'm going to share it here because spirit is very simple. We sometimes complicate things. My daughter woke up this morning and she needed to have a get healthy day. She wasn't up for it. And guess what? I've curated a life where perfect, no problem. Mommy's here. I wasn't worried. I didn't have to rush off anywhere. I can be fully present to her. She was actually sitting here during the live. So for those of you that are going to watch the recording in the manifestation space, you're going to hear her and see her. She went inside now. She decided she was done with me. She said, all right, no, I heard enough of your voice. But it seems so simplistic, but I celebrated that this morning. Not that she's under the weather, but that I get to be present, that I still get to show up here. I got to be present to the Q&A. I get to be present here in this workshop. I get to connect and still show up in the way that I want to. And it doesn't take away from the way in which I'm able to be present as a mother and support her. In fact, it amplifies my purpose. So when that happened in that moment, I celebrated it. And it's in those moments of celebration that you guys are going to amplify your ability to stay in divine alignment, to continue to receive the breadcrumbs, to be able to take the steps and move forward. We don't want these little moments to feel like they're pushing us back, right? Anytime you feel the restriction or you feel like you don't have an option, right? It's that it doesn't feel great. Versus, okay, I'm abundant. There's multiple paths of possibility here. So I really wanted, that's one of the messages I wanted to bring forward here, is to really ask yourself, am I manifesting my greatness on a daily basis? Reminding you guys to kind of pay attention to those little miracle moments, right? So Jess is saying in some areas, yes. I'm just taking a peek over here at the chat. Becky, so nice to see you. Courtney saying, I hope so. Yeah, so this is like a great reminder. Again, very simplistic, but that's what spirit is. We like to complicate things. So getting back to the basics, I feel like that's one of my strong suits, is I like to communicate in like the most accessible of forms. I think that's why we make such a good team too, Tara, Gabriel, and I. Sometimes when I listen to Gabriel, sometimes I listen to classes, I gotta listen to him 3 times. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I listen to him 3 times, right? Jess is laughing. She knows what I'm talking about. Over and Thrive. Gabriel's classes, I gotta listen to a couple times over, right? Because like he is on another level. But like when I get it, I feel so good about myself, right? But I'm able to take it in and like bring it in and bring it forward in a different way, right? We're laughing. I like that Jess knows exactly what I'm talking about. She's like, yeah, listen to it a couple times. Tara's I got right away. Anyways, so just that simplistic, like come back to basics, right? And remind yourself of that. And so in addition to that, what I would love for you guys to do, I didn't know I was going to give you homework, but I'm going to give you a couple practices to take away with this session because they're important. This dropped in earlier this morning as well. Do you take inventory and account of the ways that you have been guided and supported? Some of you might. And again, do you only recognize it on like the most grandiose of scales? Or do you recognize the ways in which you've been guided in like the most minor of moments that have bird's eye view? Like you take a look at everything and you recognize, wow, I was perfectly positioned. Perfectly positioned. This is what I wanted to bring forward in terms of what I'm going to call the divine detour. So many of us have experienced this, right? Like raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Like, have you had a divine detour? You're gonna hear some nose blowing in the background. She has come out to join us. So hopefully it's not making it hard to hear. These divine detours are when spirit comes through and perfectly positions you to receive the breadcrumb, to manifest your greatness, to continue on your path towards your purpose. And it's this opportunity to take something very bleak, right? How many times have we, it could have been a relationship, it could have been a job or career shift, it could have been something coming to completion, it could have been, again, something that we might categorize as like a bleak experience. And then are you able to witness its brightness? Like, how did that alchemize? How did that change from bleak to bright? I can think of so many examples, right? I'm going to share a couple of them here so that you guys can feel into them. I'm sure that you have your own, but I think this is important because these are a lot of the conversations that we're hearing as well this week during our clarity calls, right? Something's happened and we use it as an opportunity, right? Or there's a circumstance that feels like it's outside of ourselves. We're using it as a rationale to not move forward or to feel like we're being pulled off our path. Is that really the case? I remember being let go at 10 weeks pregnant with my first son. I was a marketing manager. I thought that was my path. I thought that was my stable career. Couldn't understand what was going to come out of that. Didn't understand from the ego's brain, why is this happening? 9 years later, thank goodness. That was one of the biggest moments for me where I made a decision and I said, I'm actually not going to go back to that type of work. I was complete with that. And if I really feel into it, I had made that decision before it actually happened. I started to get to a space and a place where I was saying, you know what, I don't know if this is the type of work I want to keep doing. I'm not feeling very fulfilled. Like I'm doing it, but it wasn't filling me up. And I felt something inside of me. But again, I didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle. So was that a bleak moment to have no idea what I was going to do, just starting my family, my husband and I, much younger than we were at this moment, and just like putting all the pieces together? But now I look back, I am so immensely grateful for that moment. I can think of so many other detours that I have taken, challenges that have been so divinely positioned. So I want you guys, if you don't already, if you haven't recently, take some inventory and account of ways in which you have been guided and supported and what it has led to. Because what that will do is if you're moving through something right now, it will really help with that shift. And this is the magnetic mind conversation. Because the conversation that you're having right now with yourself is putting a signal out to the universe to say, this is what I want. So if I use that same example and I go back to the quality of my thoughts, I know exactly the conversation I had and I made a very strong statement. And I said, I am not going back there. And guess what? I never did. I started to take different steps. I started to create a different reality to support a new path that was in greatest alignment with me building my family, with me building my business with my husband, with me building on my own strengths, on my own certifications, on my own desire to step forward in a much bigger way into this space, right? That was a conversation I had with myself. That was an inner conversation that started to reflect what my outer experience and world started to show back. So again, I want to really amplify. I'm going to take a look at the chat because I know there's some comments that were coming through. But this is where that notion that your mind is a magnet, I want to amplify this because this is what Tara really wanted to bring forward in her conversation with Gabriel today for you guys. You are putting out a signal. So again, I ask you here and now, what sorts of conversations are you having with yourself? What sort of signal are you putting out to the universe? On a moment-to-moment basis, on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis? Are you having a conversation of lack? Are you having a conversation of not enoughness? Could be not enough time, energy, resources, freedom. I feel like that's a big conversation right now too. I can have a whole other live about this, right? But You can get caught up into that conversation as well. I don't want to get caught up into that narrative. I don't want to speak about myself from restrictive semantics. I don't want to amplify that. That's not the signal I want to put out. I want to put out the signal of what I want to receive. And then again, this is where all the practices that you guys have been receiving this week, all the conversation. I know you're getting a bit more information from me here. I didn't want it to be that much, but this is what's coming through. So we're going to roll with it, right? But this is where I want to encourage you guys. Like, this is the embodiment piece. This is what you got to start taking that information and putting it into play. You can collect, and then what? So we're hearing this now, right? We're hearing this in certain conversations where people are knowing what's in greatest alignment for them. They're knowing what the next step is, but they're holding back. Why do you think that is? Why would we hold back? You know, feel free to unmute and like share it, right? Like, I know this is, or drop it in the chat. Why would you hold yourself back? If you know what is in the highest and best good, fear, perfect. Exactly what's in our notes, Caitlin, right? Like, that's it. It's fear. That's typically what shows up for all of us. Yeah, Courtney, right? Like, we all know that. Now, the question you start to ask yourself once you recognize that, and thank you so much for being amazing observers, right? Like, that's, be an observer. Get more into response versus react. So if we know that it's fear, are you really wanting to create from a space of fear? Are you wanting to make decisions from a space of fear? Because then, for those of you that have been in our world, whether you've been in a program, whether you come to a lot of these lives, whether you just plug into the content a ton, like, you know that you are a masterful creator. So if you see the fear in yourself, but you choose to continue to operate from that space of fear, can you really be surprised when the outcome, right? The signal that you're putting out is fear. So the universe goes, okay, well then, yeah, you're not ready. You actually don't want this, because you're showing me in every fiber of your being that you're letting fear take over trust. Can I lean into deep trust and knowing? Do I want to manifest and create from a space of fear? Do I want to make decision from a space of fear? So again, if we scale it back and we're having a conversation with ourselves, because again, I know that this is coming up for several people. And then I want to take a break. I want to read some comments, and I want to make space because we have a couple of beautiful members that are going to pop on and just share a little bit of their own stories, potentially moving through some fear. If we know that, it's really about us starting to take greater aligned and imperfect action. I've shared this in other conversations as well, and I'm being very intentional about sharing the notion of imperfect action, because sometimes we feel like we need to have everything figured out. You don't. You actually just need to be present to who and what you are in this moment. And when something feels really good and you're able to lean into that decision from a space of trust and knowing in lieu of the fear, that's where you start to break out of these patterns that are potentially keeping you on a path. Again, maybe that's not the truest path to your purpose, right? It's a path, but maybe it's not in greatest alignment. And guess what, guys? Spirit's going to continue to go like this. It's going to continue to take you and try and reposition you back on that path. Don't think that, like, because you didn't recognize something or you didn't see something, you're going to be given another chance. The most important part is how you respond to that. How do you respond to opportunity when it shows up for you? Because again, think about this. You've been calling in support. Maybe you've been calling in a program, just like Thriver Leadership. You've been calling in something to really be part of the catalyst to break out, to break through. This is the conversation you've been having with yourself. That's the signal you've been putting out. Now, it's presented on a silver platter. Perfect, here it is. And you go, I can't do it. the universe, again, is going to respond and it's going to go, okay, I guess you're not ready. And it's going to keep trying to position you, okay? What I find is that anytime I keep myself in a state or a space that isn't in greatest alignment, it's like a pressure cooker. So if you don't hear the call now, you don't hear that like, right? That like pressure that starts to come out of the pot. If you don't pay attention, crack the lid, it's just going to build. So again, this is where sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we are itching to get out of something. Whether it's a circumstance, whether it's a job, whether it's a financial situation, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, that's where you get to the point, right? Where it's like, I got to get out of here versus, are you guys paying attention to the nudges? Paying attention to the little breadcrumbs. You've called them in. Now, are you receiving them? So I'm going to take a break here. I want to just take a peek at the comments because this is such like a full, I have all these notes also that I want to bring forward. So I want to make sure I capture everything. I bring it into this conversation. Caitlin saying, what's the difference you find between obstacles you need to grow through and moments that you need to pay attention to as a shift in the path? Okay. So when I read that, go ahead. You want to give it some context?
Yeah, I can give you an example of what I mean. Okay. So as a yoga teacher, for example, if I'm struggling with the place that I'm at teaching, okay, is that a moment to continue to grow through trying to communicate with these people, grow through like some things there? Or is that an example of like, this is not the right place for me, move on to the next, right? Like, what's the difference between like staying to grow through that obstacle?
Yep.
And yeah.
So kind of like staying the course versus jumping ship and moving on. Okay. So I think it's really interesting. And I appreciate that you gave it your personal context because I'm not typically a fan of jumping ship. Only because that can also become a pattern that's not very supportive, right? When you're like, oh, and now I'm going to try this. Oh, and now I'm going to try this versus, okay, let me stay the path. Let me stay the course. So this is where your connection to yourself, like your deepest knowing of who and what you are and your intuitive guidance in that moment, that's where I would tap into to say, again, just as a practice in of itself, like Spirit Source Creator, is it in the highest and best good for me to continue teaching in this space? And you receive. Because either path, and this is, thank you for bringing this forward, because this is exactly what we're talking about. Either path can work. This is not about right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. It's just you making a conscious choice of, do I want to? So you don't have to share what some of the challenges are. If you want to, go ahead. But I would look at some of the challenges that you are possibly being presented to move through. Are these things that you know that you need to kind of pay attention to? Maybe there are things that you've been putting off to the side. Maybe there are things that you really don't want to move through because of how much friction or resistance they feel. And if that was the case, I actually would stay the course. Now, if there are challenges that you just recognize are not in greatest alignment, so this is where things like morals and belief systems come into place, right? Something like that. Then I might say to myself, again, my intuition tells me that this is no longer in greatest alignment, and I'm ready to bring that to completion and let it go. But those are two very different contexts, right? So the nuances of them, it's really about tapping in and it's about coming back to self. There's no like one answer fits all in this case. And again, this is where I'm so appreciative of the work and the practices that we get to do over in Thrive and over in leadership, because this is where you build the trust within yourself. You're no longer investing your energy in questioning multiple decisions. Like, guys, if I think about the number of decisions, especially right now, on a personal and professional level that I have to make on a daily basis, okay? We run multiple businesses. We're currently building a property. We run a rental property. I have 2 children. Like, I work in this space with Terry. Like, if I think about the multitude in different areas of decisions that I have to make, if I was investing hours upon hours with every decision, there goes my time. There goes my freedom. There goes my ability to generate abundance. I don't have time for that. I made that decision a long time ago. So I really honed in on, and I'm so grateful for the practices specifically that I received in Thrive. And I'm going to bring Jess on after this because I feel like she can speak into this as well, because this is a big part of what we do in the program. It's like, let's move through that. Imagine how much more time you would create for yourself, time, freedom, and abundance, if you weren't sitting in indecisiveness, if you weren't sitting in mistrust with yourself, right? So Caitlin, as an example, I don't know how long you've been contemplating this, right? Or feeling into it.
Not too long. And
Perfect.
most of the time when I ask the question, I already know the answer.
There you go, right? Like, and that's the whole point, is we know, like, the answers are within us. Myself, Tara, and Gabriel, we're not here to show you the answers. We're here to be present to you finding them within yourselves. We're here to give you tools and practices and support and a little bit of structure to say, show up, be present, commit to yourself. There's nothing wrong with committing to yourself, right? This is where, again, like your workout routine, your health, your spiritual wealth, your spiritual health and wellness. Commit to yourself so that, again, you open up. And when people have this question, like, how do I create more time? Like, I don't get it. There's only 24 hours in a day and you spend X amount sleeping. I'm like, yeah, but again, this is where when I talk about opening up time and space, because that is one of the benefits of Thrive. And a huge piece that I've pulled out from being in that program, especially the last 6 years. That's how you create time. You create time by shortening the amount of time that you're sitting in mistrust, that you're sitting in worry, that you're sitting in anxiety, that you're sitting in overwhelm, that you're sitting in indecisiveness. What do I do? What's the right path? No. What's the most aligned path? And then you receive. And then again, this is where, Caitlin, if we stick to your example, now you have choice. And that choice is going to be the signal, right, that you're sending out into the universe. This is your mind is a magnet. So coming back to that conversation, that choice is now going to ignite a whole other host of opportunity, whole other host of possibility. Because you said, you know what, naturally, I'm good. I've come to completion. I'm ready to receive the next opportunity, or I'm ready potentially to create the next opportunity for myself. What does that look like? And now your attention and energy is invested in that. It's invested in creation. It's not invested in indecisiveness, right? So I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. And again, I've learned that in a big way as like an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a wife, as like all these hats that you wear, right? You wear all the hats. And whether or not you relate to those hats, guys, we are abundant beings. On any given day, you're wearing a whole host of different responsibilities and hats that you're putting on and taking off. Get good at doing it, right? Like get good at jumping from spot to spot and being able to navigate. So let me take a quick peek here. I just want to capture these comments before I bring on the beautiful Jess. She is here and she is present with us. Zoe's saying I have to listen to him a few times too. Oh, yes, the Gabriel conference. I'm glad it's not just me. Okay. I'm glad that is not just me. He knows it too. I don't know if they're listening right now, but if they listen to this replay, it'll be funny. Gabriel knows. Courtney's saying that's the part I find tricky, is when I'm being actually guided and not questioning it. So again, yeah, like this is where the trust comes in. Trusting in the moments that don't feel on paper in greatest alignment is part of your practice. It's so easy to trust when everything's going like perfect to a T, right? It's so easy to be like, look at me, I've made all the right decisions, I have no repercussions, right? But the reality, right? My reality is I actually know that I'm making the right decision when I am in a state of consistent, like, you know, a little friction, not a lot, a little bit, because it means I am consistently up-leveling myself. It means I'm consistently pushing into new boundaries that I potentially have created, barriers that I would have created for myself, and I'm busting through them. If I'm feeling too easy for too long, it probably means I've gotten really comfortable where I am. And just knowing myself, the way that I am, the way that I show up in the world, I'm gonna feel like, okay, something else, right? Like I want to create something else, or I'm ready for the next thing. That's good. That's momentum. That's that like coming from the root, like that's that creation energy, right? So Courtney, and I'm going to read through the rest of these comments, but let me know if that's helpful. Okay. Or if you want to elaborate a little bit on it, feel free to unmute yourself. Fear, this is where we all caught it. I was just going to say that too, Caitlin. Sometimes it's tricky to get through it. It feels thick. How do you get past the feeling that you are falling behind? I think Gabriel was saying something that if you don't fulfill certain things that come to you, someone else will. So how do you take steps toward it without missing out? Okay, this is so interesting. And I'm glad, okay, this is the last comment and I'm going to bring Jess on, but this is 100% true. And I've seen it happen many, many times in my world, where again, a thought drops in and you see it come to manifestation outside of yourself, because that is how powerful we are. So again, coming back to full circle, how we started manifesting your greatness, that is how powerful you are. That is the power of the magnet of your brain putting out the signal and saying, this is something that I'd like to bring forward. This is something that the world needs. This is something that I can see coming to fruition. And if it's not you who does it, somebody else is going to do it. 100%. Oh, there's a cat I don't know just walking through my yard. Hello. I love that. I know there's a little signal in that also. So this is where, again, yes, we are such powerful creators that if we put it out there, it's going to come to fruition. So this is where seize the, oh my gosh, are you showing me something else? There, you got a cat too? What's going on? Is that your cat, Jess? What's going on? No, okay, that's hilarious. There's some cat energy happening right now. And honestly, they looked really similar. Oh, that's so funny. I didn't want to move the camera because I didn't want to disrupt it, but it was this gorgeous gray looking cat. Oh my gosh. Okay. Hilarious. I gotta feel into the cat energy once I jump off this live. So again, you are so powerful that when you think about something, when you bring it forward, yes, it will come to fruition. We are consistently emitting. And this is why also, guys, pay attention to what you're like taking in. Pay attention to what you're choosing to hold on to. Because if you're choosing to hold on to the conversation of fear, it's not in the highest and best good. And Courtney, with your question, I would use this as an opportunity to start to switch up the narrative and perhaps the pattern that you're seeing within yourself. So if you're recognizing that you are feeling certain things or you are thinking about certain things, but then really holding back, that's where I want you to maybe start to have that conversation with yourself. Why are you holding back? Okay, if it's from a place of fear, is fear the space that I want to be creating from? What's a better space that I can be investing my time and energy into? That I can bring this to fruition. And I wouldn't look at it in the sense of something was missed, because I don't believe that. If it's come to fruition, fantastic. I would celebrate that. I would look at that and say, oh my gosh, and I would celebrate how magical I am, how majestic of a manifestor I am, that this came to fruition, not even through me, but that's how powerful I am, that it's out in the world, that the next time that opportunity comes to you, you seize it. You take it and you make it yours. I had, and I want to share this, and I'm going to bring Jess on, had a really interesting conversation with my mother. Some of us have frictional relationships with our mother. I love my mom, but like she's one of my greatest teachers, right? She's a beautiful mirror reflection of some of the things that I've really worked on in myself and in my relationship. And I'm so grateful for her for that. And we've gotten much closer, surprisingly, after moving far away from each other over the last 5 years. So we have these really big, beautiful conversations when we get to connect. It's no longer just, stopping by. It's like really intentional when we sit down and we get to see each other. We get to have conversations. And just a brief background story. My husband and I moved out of the city. We moved into our little teeny tiny cottage about 6 years ago. We have a food and events business, and they shut us down for 2 years when the world went crazy. And so it really forced us from a whole host of different spaces to really expand and grow. And again, think about that. I won't lean into that conversation too much. Maybe I'll bring it forward in another space and place to reflect on. But we had 2 kids under 2, a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, the business that sustained us, everything just kind of complete destruction. And it was in that moment that something really bleak became something really bright, because now almost 6 years later, we fully transitioned. We moved here about 5 years ago. We moved out of the city. We've been building our life. We're right down the street from a gorgeous beach and the lake, which I put this into the universe 15 years ago, not knowing how, but I said, I'd love to live by the beach. And I planted that seed and left it, right? Didn't know how that was going to come to fruition. This is one of those like majestic moments that I reflect on all the time. Because I live in Simcoe County, for those of you that are familiar with the space, close to Collingwood and Tiny in Ontario. And so didn't know how that would come to fruition. So we've been creating and manifesting completely different life for the last 5 years. And my mother had a conversation with me recently. My mother had a conversation with me recently where she acknowledged and said, you know, I used to think about having this type of life all the time with your dad. She'd have me, my brother, and my sister in the car. My parents lived in the city. I grew up in the city in Toronto my whole life. She said, whenever we would take rides out to the country, I would think to myself, I would love to move out here with the kids. I would love to have that experience. I wonder what it would be like. But the fear for them, based on the tools that they had at that time, was that wasn't the safe choice. That wasn't something that she felt like she could do. And in that moment, she knew and I knew, and we just kind of reflected in a really beautiful moment that she had brought that manifestation for herself through me. I know that I'm living a version of my mom that she thought about. And she reflects it back to me all the time, the type of experience that my children are having here. She applauded my marriage. She applauded the way in which my husband and I communicate and run our business together, the way in which we support each other. So in a really powerful way, yes, these things that we think about, they come to life, but there's these awesome moments where you get to celebrate that they've come to fruition, that they've come from you. And they're going to make it into the world somehow. Full body, like it was a really beautiful moment, right? And I acknowledged it, and we just kind of shared it. And I don't think she even recognized the impact of it, but like I feel like in that moment, something in her healed. Something in her felt lighter. So again, this is where paying attention and coming back to that conversation of your mind and the conversations that you're having. Do you see how like a complete like narrative shift, Courtney? Like you can look at you can look at that from the most beautiful perspective. Like how many times has something that I've thought of brought light to somebody else, brought goodness to somebody else, had a ripple effect that was so important, so profound. And then again, seize the day the next time, right? Okay, amazing. So I'm going to take a pause there. I want to invite Jess to unmute herself. Jess is amazing. She's been in our world for several years. She has taken part in several programs. I know she's known Tara and Gabriel for a very long time, but I want her to introduce herself, what she does in the world, and share just a little bit about how she stepped into the space and maybe some of the transformations that she's seen on her end. Go ahead, Jess.
Hello, everyone. I'm going on a walk. My name's Jess. I am a teacher. I teach dance and yoga and Pilates. I'm a director. I'm a mother of 2. And Devin, get off. We're going to walk across the street. And let's see. I'm in Thrive. I've been in Thrive for, I guess we'll just keep walking this way. Sorry, it's like at an awkward time. I'm trying to go down this hill and my little one will not listen. Let's see. Ooh.
This is life at its finest.
I know, right?
Just rolling with it. It's all good.
Yeah. I did the meditation certification and like the soul alchemy, energy reshaping and meditation certificate. I think I already said that. Anyway, I've known Tara for so long, you guys, like for decades, it feels like. Oh, that's what happens. You okay? Did that scare ya? Okay. Anyway, let's see. Sorry. I was all set to talk earlier. Now it's like, yeah. So listen, I've had so much help through so many different moving through challenges in my life, changing careers, getting sober. And it's funny when you mentioned finding the time, because there were so many programs that I did even before. I think even before Tara and Gabriel were married, even. We're not going to turn that on right now. No, not yet. I would just, when I was in grad school, I would listen to all the replays. So it's interesting. It's like, even if you can't be live, like right now I'm in Thrive and I can only listen to 30 minutes of the class before I have to pop off and teach a class myself. But then I listen to the replays or join the Q&A, and it's still so beneficial, you know? So if you're really hesitant, I would say go for it. It really makes a huge difference. Choosing yourself. Sorry, I'm like out of breath from my walk. My gosh, I feel like I missed the question because I was focusing on
No, you're
crossing the
amazing.
street.
Like, no, I'm going to support you here because you're amazing. And this is, I think it's even using this as an example in of itself. Like Jess is such a successful, amazing mother, entrepreneur, business owner, wife, and expanding on the timepiece and recognizing that with all of those pieces in the air, investing the time in yourself is probably one of the most important pieces, because when you're holding all of those plates, if you don't have a solid foundation underneath to support you, that's when things can really feel wobbly, right? Like we chatted about that last week on, I think it might have been one of the first bonus days.
Yeah.
Wobble, right? Like navigating the wobble. And so I know for me, and maybe this is what you can plug into. And then if you got to wrap, no worries, because like I feel you with the kids and all the stuff. But this is where a lot of the practices in Thrive have supported being able to navigate that wobble without jumping ship. Like speaking about Caitlin's question, right? This is where you learn, right? Like here's a tool and here's a practice. Sure. You can still be all of those pieces of yourself and navigate those moments with swiftness, right? It's not about avoiding those moments. It's not about those moments not happening. It's just, how are you responding now versus, and maybe this is what you can speak into, how do you respond now versus maybe the version of yourself prior to stepping into Thrive?
Yeah, I respond a little bit more with grace. I have trust more in myself. And if I make mistakes, which I do wobble, right? How I like recover quickly, as opposed to beating myself up more. How I respond to my children, my husband, my relationship with my husband is so great. Oh my gosh. I mean, don't get me wrong. He really bothers me sometimes. But we have such a great relationship. And it's interesting that Caitlin had this experience or is going through this and already knows the answer. Sometimes just speaking into it. I took on a job recently, or I said yes to it last spring, and I already started feeling quickly into, wow, this is not for me. I remember like why I said no to this before. And I quickly spoke into the universe and to my boss, I need to step away from this. I said yes to this too quickly. However, I want to help in other capacities to make this transition smoother. I want to be able to substitute and help other teachers in this way. And then more opportunities started to show up. So I feel like I'm handling with grace. I'm able to stand up for myself instead of being a pushover, because I'm such a people pleaser. Just recently, I sent out an email asking a simple question because there was a deadline that was due and it was already a few days had passed and I hadn't heard anything from the director. No big deal. I sent out an email and then the director had responded, and I felt like maybe I shouldn't have sent that email, but I was like, no, it's okay that I sent that email. And this is maybe too much information, may seem cryptic, but I was able to stand up for myself. And I was like, no, yeah, thanks. I appreciate the communication. Like, it's just, I'm able to handle myself in a way that I feel like I'm still able to be me. And also speak my truth with grace and dignity and respect and not apologize. I'm a big people pleaser, like I said. And so things are a little bit different. And then also when I'm snapping, for example, and I lose it with my children or my husband or whomever, I'm able to quickly take take accountability, and then move forward quickly. And then in this program, with especially with because I'm in Thrive, I re-signed up for it. It's nice to be in a community that supports each other. That's really, really important. That has a lot of light, and it's not like Debbie Downer. Um, it's it's supporting each other in a way where you're like, okay, I agree, I hear you, I'm with you, and then I can light you up, and it just feels so supportive that you can move through things a little bit quicker.
100%, right? Like we all, I think we can think of spaces and places where, again, we might bring these conversations forward and they're not really received in the best way. So I know for a lot of our Thrivers, myself included, like there's certain things that I solely bring to that conversation or that community because I know I'm going to be supported. I know I'm going to be lifted up. And then guess what? Once it's rooted within me, this is one of the conversations we have over in that container. Once it's rooted within you, once you are aware of like your capital T truth and you've got the voice, that's when you present it to the world. But sometimes when you're premature with that, it's like you feel impacted by all of the other opinions, by all of the other conversations, right? And we start to hold it in. And then we start to go, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be creating that. Oh, maybe this is a mistake. It's just in utero. So Thrive, similar to leadership, right? Just like a different level of conversation, because that's more of a business-centered conversation. Thrive is more personal development and growth, right? But in both of those scenarios, a lot of our members, myself included, we have these creations, we have these notions, we have these paths towards our purpose. They're just in utero. It's like they're bubbling up. And we need the support. We need a little bit of guidance, right? So that's where having Tara and Gabriel leading the classes, leading the Q&As, this host of meditations and library of like deep and thoughtful conversations that you can consume and plug into are going to support you while that is being birthed within you. So that when it's ready to come up, when you're ready to step onto that next path, that's part of your purpose. When you're refining that pearl of purpose, right? Tara was bringing that forward in conversations this week. You're refining it because it's ever evolving. That's the other piece, right? Like we are not, I know I'm not the same version as I was 5 years ago. I'm not the same version as I was definitely not 10, 15 years ago. I'm barely the same version as I was 6 months ago. Again, that's how I know I'm doing the work is because not that I don't recognize myself, but I'm moving. Like we're jumping, right? Like the momentum is going. If I think about even what's been created in the last 5 years, and I keep using that point of reference because when I stepped in to support Tara and Gabriel in their business, now almost 6 years ago, I was a different version of myself. You wouldn't have caught me up here leading a workshop. You wouldn't have caught me I would not have had the confidence within myself. Did I have the information? Had I done all the certifications? Yes, I had. Would you have caught? Absolutely not. I was missing something. Not missing because it was outside of myself. It was inside of myself. I just had to crack it open. And it was so helpful to have someone outside of myself see that in me. That was Tara. See that in me and say, actually, you can. Actually, you will. Actually, here you go. And so that's what that community becomes for a lot of people is you are reminded of your greatness, which is so important because not all of us get that in our outside big. Even if we have the most loving of families and friends and partners, it's a different level, right? And I love that Jess touched on it, right? And I want to bring in the relationship piece that you shared here too, because I think that's one of the most beautiful, it's almost like a cherry on top that comes from being in a program like this. It doesn't necessarily have to be an intimate partner, but I saw the same in my husband, but people see it in their relationships with their mothers, with their fathers, with their siblings, with their friends. There is this effect, this ripple effect that starts to happen where when you start to do the work within yourself, you start to show up as a different version of yourself. And as you show up as a different version of yourself, that's how you impact people around you. That's how you impact the world around you. That's how you create change. It's not through force. It's not going to someone and saying, you should really think about changing, X, Y, and Z about yourself. That's not where it comes from. It comes from you operating in the world in an inspirational way that makes the people around you go, oh, well, I gotta start, I gotta start reflecting on this a little bit. Like I gotta make some changes. And I've seen that. I know there was a comment on here, I think it was from Becky that was mentioning, right, that story that I just shared about my mom. And I will reflect that back here again. I put in a lot of the practices that I took over the last 5.5 years, supporting from the back end, right? But I'm there, I'm in the classes, I'm listening, I'm doing the work, right? Because how else can I be the best support when y'all come in to your one-on-ones, right? So I'm doing the work alongside you and I'm putting it into play. And I watched that relationship transform because before I approached it with force. So again, think about in your world, this doesn't have to be from a relationship perspective, but are you approaching your purpose with force? Are you sitting there going like, oh, like, what am I here to do? Are you operating from a space of force? And again, whether it comes to relationships, your professional, maybe it's your financial abundance, and you're operating from this space of frustration or from this space of resistance versus openness, receptivity.
I
Go
can
ahead.
I just
Yeah.
love what you're saying, and it just reminded me about what Tara and Gabriel have taught us about how everything is energy, you know, and like what you're saying is that like spirit is usually, you said this earlier, everything is, or spirit's usually really simple. It's not a complicated answer. And so with the force, usually that doesn't really work. You're going to have some pushback. So if it's I took last Friday in rehearsal, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be really soft and easy with my approach and my energy, because that's what I want. I think Tara just had said something in her line with purpose, and Gabriel in one of the bonus sessions or whatever it was, or it was Friday, so it wasn't a bonus session, but and how are you showing up in the world? What do you want reflected back to you? And I was like, oh yeah, that's really smart. Like, duh. So what energy am I going to give off?
Yeah.
Everything was so great. I was able to finish the dance. I didn't think I was going to. And I just was like, we're just going to be in a state of flow. And it was so easy. It was just so great. So it's like you said, it's like being in these programs, though, I want to be reminded of it, right? Because sometimes if you're not, I want to be manifesting, like I want to be, calm and at peace, and I want to be able to work out and be lean. But if you're actually not taking the action, it doesn't just naturally happen. It's like you have to be in the
No,
practice.
thank you for highlighting that, right? Because it's all, guys, it's great to say, I'm going to sit here and quiet and I'm going to bring forward the mantra that I'm just going to generate $50,000 this month. And does that work? To a certain degree, but there needs to be some sort of complementary aligned action. You have to match it, right? You put out the signal. So thank you for bringing it full circle back to like the magnet of the mind conversation, because that is what we want to focus on here. It's like, what are you putting out? And then how are you matching it? Because if you're just sitting back, or like you said, if it's like, well, I love a healthy and lean body, but you don't want to put in the energy to nourish it and move it to support that, guys, maybe it'll come to fruition, but it definitely won't be an efficient or like expedited version of that, right? You're gonna be sitting there asking for a while. Versus, okay, how can I match it, right? Yeah, like you want to match it. And again, this is the conversation that I think a lot of people are having right now, where it's whether something like, yes, my love, oh, did your hair get caught? Yeah. Oh my goodness, what'd you do there? Oh, I think we got it. Here we go. You got it. You're freed. Okay. Whether it's Thrive or leadership, again, you've called in, or you're here in this, you've been here in this workshop, like something has drawn you here. You've been so plugged into the conversations. Things have been landing for you. Everything's aligned. Now, how are you going to respond? Are you going to maintain the momentum? Because this is the conversation we're leading into for Thrive. This is the conversation that's going to kick off Tuesday night, tomorrow, 8 p.m. That's when this module starts. This is your opportunity to maintain this momentum. I'm sure a lot of you have felt different this week, right? Like, let me know, or drop it in the comment, or if you're watching the replay, like, how has this week felt versus the week prior? Being plugged into this content, being plugged into these conversations, having some practices to put into play. It's like those nudges and those reminders. This work is so untangible that we forget how important it is. The results Things like having a beautiful marriage and relationship with your husband, that sometimes feels like an untangible, because you can't explain how, oh my goodness, now I feel different. I feel supported. I feel more love. I feel more connection. It's not just, the abundance that flows in physically to your bank account. Yes, you can go through a course on business development and then you can see that, your business thrive. But it's this type of work, the inner growth and development, that supports that foundation so you can become the version of yourself that sees that abundant flow come in. But you can't get to there from here. This is what the comment that Jess brought forward, right? Like, it's got to come together. You got to match it. So if you know that that's part of your purpose, that there's another step, that you're ready to move forward, that you want to continue this conversation, guys, this is where, like, this is the time. This is the time to come in. This is the time to come in to thrive, whether you want to come in for the single module for the 10 weeks. Fly here. And join us for this conversation. This is a great way to kickstart your momentum, right? Because there's a couple of pathways to come in. There's Thrive for 10 weeks coming into this module. There's Thrive for the full year. There's awesome savings for the full year. I know you get $1,000 off the full investment of the program, which is phenomenal, right? If you're ready to commit to the 12 months, perfect, right? Perfect, perfectly aligned. But guess what? If that feels in this moment, if this version of yourself feels like, okay, that feels like a bit of a stretch, guess what? There's another path. Be open to the paths of possibility. Can I come in for just the 10 weeks? I'm so interested too. There's this psychology that comes up sometimes when I'm in conversation and people tell themselves, even before knowing the investment, that they can't do it. They go, oh, no, I've been here all week. I love it. Right. And we're doing our follow-ups. We're having all the conversations, right? Because that's part of this place. That's part of the program. That's part of how we're able to continue to show up. And they tell themselves before knowing the investment that they can't do it. And it's such a beautiful opportunity to just, like, quick refinement. Wait a minute. Let me be open to the possibility that this is actually something I can do. Why would I operate from that space of lack or that space of fear or telling myself that it's something that's unreachable, unattainable? Guys, everything that you've ever created was at one point unattainable. Everything that you've ever done was at one point something that you did not know how to do. Do you know how you got there? You took a step. Maybe you took a course. Maybe you took a risk. Maybe you made a move. You didn't get there by sitting back and doing nothing. So when you reflect on that and you remember, wait a minute, I've done this many, many times. I know most of you that are here watching this workshop, whether you're here live or you've been watching the replays, because I know so many of you. You've been there many times. You've created something from nothing. So this is another example of, you have an opportunity to step into something that's going to elevate this version of yourself to prepare and position you for what's next. Caitlin just stepped in, and I'm just going to highlight her here and celebrate her because she knows, right? Like, we just got off our orientation for Thrive. And it's like, you were so confident in your knowing of, like, this is what I need to do next. Like, I'm perfectly positioned. This is, everything came together. And so beautiful how you met Tara and Gabriel over the summer, right? Like, you guys connected live, like all these pieces. We're actually very close to each other, Caitlin, because you're in, yeah, we're really close to each other. We can actually connect live for a coffee sometime. I got to shoot you a message. So close to you right now. So, but just knowing, and I hope you don't mind me bringing you forward here, but, like, just to celebrate you and to recognize that, like, that's Caitlin stepping in, recognizing this is exactly what I called in, right? In some capacity, you were probably calling in, like, the right mentors, the right community, the right connection. And it just presented itself to you. And in taking that aligned action, in saying yes, you're going to start to receive all the beautiful fruits of that. And they show up in such big, beautiful ways. Now, one thing I do want to bring into the conversation here is they don't always show up in the way that we expect them to. So many people come into Thrive for one reason, and they come out receiving something so outside of the scope of what they thought. That's how big and beautiful that space is. Again, it just cracks you right open. And you start to receive these layers. They start to come off, right? And you start to be able to see these pieces of yourself that allow you to take the next step forward, right? I want to take a quick look at the chat here, and I want to be mindful of time because I can't believe it's already been an hour, but it has. So I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I know it's been a big, beautiful, abundant week. Courtney saying, Jess, I just had a light bulb moment. I recently stepped into a space because it felt good at the time. And then I realized quickly, feeling it in my body, that it was clearly a no. And I felt more able to go back to the person and say that this is no longer feeling aligned for me and feeling so good about the decision instead of guilt. Beautiful. You just opened up space and time. Perfect. Right? I love how all these little synchronicities, right? They're all speaking to one another because you had the trust in the knowing. And I know Courtney was in our world. She just completed Thrive. She's been through Thrive. So she has this big, beautiful toolbox of practices that she's able to tap into to support her in some of these experiences, right? That are happening on a day-to-day basis. And having those tools, oh my goodness, they've served me in a multitude of ways. Courtney again is saying, yes, I think it's realizing after the fact since being in Thrive and now taking a step back, big growth moments, 100%, right? You're almost sitting back. That happens too when we come out of a container like that, with feet in the background. When we come out of a container like that, it's like this integration moment where you get to root into like, wow, what was the version of myself 12 months ago? We just had this conversation, right? Caitlin, I was suggesting like, give yourself a little voice memo today of where you're at. Those of you that are taking this step forward, make note of where you're at, the quality of your thoughts, the way that you think about yourself, the way that you think about your dreams and your manifestations, what you believe your purpose to be, since we're stepping into this module. Write it out, do a voice note. And then when you come out, whether it's out of 10 weeks, out of 6 months of Thrive, out of a full 12-month cycle, listen to that. Hearing yourself or reading what you were thinking and then coming out on the other end. It's such a powerful practice. Again, you guys can apply this to anything, right? But if you're coming into the space, I encourage you, make that note because these really big, beautiful shifts happen. And sometimes we forget. We forget how much we've grown, right? Caitlin saying, I feel much more connected this week. Yeah. It's a beautiful space to be in. And when you feel more connected, guess what, guys? Spirit, source, creator, God, the universe, however you resonate, your world starts to respond to you in a very different way, right? Courtney saying, yes, just being in a connected space with other like-minded humans. Jess, love you, Alexandra, such a great workshop, popping off. Thank you so much, Jess, for popping on and sharing. Courtney, missing it already. I know we miss you too, right? But know that this is a space you can come right back in, right? I think we have a lot of members that are in, believe it or not, like their 3rd or 4th round of Thrive. Like it's this constant for them. Because while we have these modules and these threads that are similar, everything evolves because we're evolving every year. We're evolving every module. Tara and Gabriel are not teaching the same conversation in spiritual mastery that we were having even last year. So again, this is where I encourage you, if you're feeling the pull now, come in now. Because I don't know that we're going to be having this conversation next year. We may be outside of this space and feeling called to have a different type of conversation. So pay attention if you're feeling the pull, right? Like seize the day. Don't let the fear, if that's what you're moving through, book a clarity call, have a conversation with myself, Tara, Gabriel. Let us work through what that is and then make a decision. Make a decision from a space of connection, not from a space of fear. Make a decision from like in the highest and best good. Not, I don't know if this is something I can do, right? Courtney saying, yes, integration time, but I'm sure I'll be back in some capacity, keeping that in the field 100%, right? Keep it, the mind is a magnet, right? Like that's the signal that you want to put out. It's not the lack, it's beautiful. I'm going to be back in some capacity. I'm going to be back. And between now and then, you're going to start or continue making certain decisions that are going to support that if you choose to keep that in your field, right? Caitlin, thank you so much for being here. I know I'm going to wrap because I know I went over time a bit and I wanted to leave some space to speak into the programs. We've kind of been talking about them intermittently, but I want to remind you guys some big, beautiful bonuses associated with Thrive. And again, there's multiple paths to possibility here. You can come in for the 10 weeks, right? The access point is very different than coming in for the 12 months. So if you're curious about pricing, if this is a space that you want to continue the conversation, Courtney, I'm even feeling and speaking into you a little bit here, right? So like, feel free to shoot me a message, even just to explore, like, what does it look like for the next 10 weeks? And then consider, because yes, we know the physical cost, right? Consider what's the cost of not continuing this work? What's the cost of not investing in myself? What space and place am I going to find myself come the end of December? Which I'm not a huge fan of timelines, you know, I'm going to let this truck go by. I'm not a huge fan of timelines, right? But that is how we sometimes bookmark things. But we're in the last quarter of the year. Where do you want to see yourself come next year? Are there certain seeds that you want to plant? Connected to your purpose, connected to some of those next steps. Now is the time where we're going to be having these conversations, whether it's in Thrive, especially in leadership, right? There's multiple paths here. This is where we're here to support you. We can direct you and say, you are best aligned for this. You are best aligned for this. I'm really good at that, right? So you book a clarity call, have a conversation, and see what fits. And most importantly, just being open. Being open to what that could look like, being open to the possibilities, right? Guys, I don't know if I caught everything in my notes, but I want to wrap here because I really want to honor time. And I appreciate you guys showing up to the lives, showing up to the replays, plugging in this week, being so present. I celebrate those of you that have stepped in. I am celebrating in advance those of you that I know are going to be taking this step moving forward over the next couple of days. Again, some of those time-sensitive bonuses are going to come to completion at 8 p.m. tomorrow. So right before class starts for this new module, some of those big, beautiful bonuses, including $1,000 off, or in the other program, $222 off, those are going to disappear. So you have an opportunity to save a little bit now, which is always welcomed. And more importantly, though, guys, you have an opportunity to receive. Yes, you're going to invest, but guess what? You're going to receive tenfold. Receive what you've called in. Put that signal out to the universe. When I say I want something and you present it to me, I am ready to receive it. Because guess what? The next time you ask for something, the next time you call in something even bigger, something that feels even more outside the scope of what you're able to create, it shows up for you. And if I didn't want to take up more time, I would just pile on here a couple of like really big, beautiful things that I have created, again, both in my personal and in my professional. I know a lot of you, so feel free to send me a message, send me a DM if you want to have that conversation. You want to book that clarity call. You want to expand on this. Because that is what happens. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This investment could feel really big for you right now. Guess what? The second you say yes, you call in something more. You set yourself up to receive something more. You are put on that path to purpose, right? Okay, amazing. I feel so good. I feel so complete. I appreciate you guys welcoming me here to lead this bonus content. Again, I'm not going to post the link here because I can't grab it right now. I have a couple of different things open, but if you are curious, y'all know where to find me. I know most of you over in Facebook, send me a DM. We'll post in the group the Clarity Call link, and I know Tara has it connected to all of the emails. So get your calls in. We still have time opening up. And again, you still have a good 24 hours until those bonuses come to completion. So book your calls. Hopefully we'll see y'all in Thrive. And there is one more bonus session. So tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you're going to see Tara and Gabriel again. I'll be here in the background, and we'll be wrapping up this week. Thank you guys so much. Have the most beautiful day. Bye.